Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here in the FIWARE DLT4Gov Day, where we will discuss the role of distributed ledger technologies in shaping the future of digital governments. My name is Ángeles Tejado, and I am representing the FIWARE Foundation that is organizing this session under the umbrella of the token project. Just a few recommendations before we start. This is a live event and it is being recorded. That means that by attending this event, you agree to the recording, which will be made available on the FIWARE YouTube channel afterwards. Should any of you have any questions, please drop them into the question and answer section to your right and add which speaker the question is for. In addition, I take the opportunity to thank our media partners, Business Reporter, Compass List, Our Future Water, Smart Cities World, and Zoom Global Smart Cities for their support in disseminating this event. Now, I would like to welcome today's speakers lineup. We will have with us Dominic Schneider, a co-founder from IOTA, Stefano De Pamphilis, Chief Operating Officer at the FIWARE Foundation, Montse Guardia-Güell, General Manager at Alastria Blockchain Ecosystem, Miguel Ángel Calero Fernández, co-founder of Realize, Joao Martínez Frade, Lead Architect of the Chief Architecture Office and Head of Sector of Digital Building Blocks at the European Commission. And I will now hand it over to the person that will be steering the direction of the dialogue today. Judith Clifton is professor and founding director of the Jean Monnet Chair and the Faculty of Business and Economics at the Faculty of Business and Economic Science in the University of Cantabria. She's also editor-in-chief of the Journal of Economic Policy Reform and responsible of the impact assessment and policy learning on the token project. Thank you, Judith. The stage is yours.
Okay, Angelis, thank you very much for that. So Angelis has already gone over the schedule of the talks today. Of course, we're talking about blockchain. I think I've been looking at the people who are connected. We have people from Saudi Arabia, we have people from Canada, we have people from across Europe, we have people working in blockchain already. We actually have students who perhaps don't know so much, they're interested in blockchain. So I hope that this session today is going to be interesting. I think it certainly will be. I think really we are going to focus on the topic of blockchain in government, blockchain in public services. We've done a look at all the stuff that's published on blockchain, and most of it is about the financial sector, about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. But now there's an emerging interest in what can blockchain do for government and what can it do for citizens? What are the good sides that we can exploit with the new technology emerging from blockchain? So hopefully by the time our token project's finished and by the time we talk today, we'll have a few more answers. I'm going to just not talk very much now, but what I will just say is that all the speakers have been allocated a very specific time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my camera off, and then when the speakers have 5 minutes left, I'm going to put my camera on, and I will kind of give them a 5-minute warning. All of the people who are speaking can either stop quickly and allow people to ask questions or can continue for speaking, but then there won't be much time for questions because we've got a very tight agenda. So more or less, that's how I will plan to organize the talk today. So if there's nothing else to be sorted out, I think we could move straight on to the first keynote speaker, who is Dominic Schneider, as Angelis said, who's the co-founder of IOTA. Is that possible, Dominic? Could we start with you, please?
Yeah.
And
thanks a lot for the invitation.
You have 20 minutes, Dominic. Okay.
Yeah. Perfect. I'll share my screen. So basically, what I want to talk about today with the 20 minutes that I have is really the importance of blockchain and sort of this notion of digital infrastructure for smart cities, and obviously how they actually make smart cities smart. And then I'll really try and dive deeper into what I personally perceive is the most important application, like blockchain-based application for smart cities, which is digital identities. And afterwards, I guess we can do a short Q&A session. I guess the question of what is a city and what is a smart city one is a really difficult question to answer, because there really, sorry, that's my dog, because there really is no clear definition of what makes a smart city smart, I would say, right? It's basically our attempt to connect a city with smart devices, with connected devices, right, with the Internet of Things, and through that automate really these processes in the city and make it smarter and more efficient. But now, also because of COVID and everything that's been happening, we're starting to redefine what a city actually is, because all of us can work from anywhere. Right, it's no longer this economic hub, but it's a very exciting question, right? And I don't have a clear answer yet either on what a city is and what a smart city is. But what is very apparent is that when it comes to the city, it basically is a combination. It's like this convergence of different verticals, right? We have mobility. How do we get around in the city? How do we get from A to B? How do we do transportation of goods? And how do we solve this sort of last mile problem of reaching the consumer, the customer of goods? Energy distribution, right? Very important topic. Also, when it comes to sustainability and the climate, the cities really play a crucial role there. And then we have telecommunications, healthcare, and so on. And what's very exciting is that the notion of these smart cities and the way that we actually build these smart cities is through digital infrastructure, right? We have the physical layer, which is the streets, which is the energy grid, which is the telecommunications infrastructure and all of that. But what really makes a smart city smart is its digital infrastructure, is sort of its digital backbone. And I think, especially because of what's been happening with the US infrastructure plan, it really, like the sort of investment into infrastructure, physical and digital, is really, really growing and tremendously over the next over the next few years and over the next few decades, because only by combining physical and digital infrastructure can we really achieve these goals that we have of building better cities, more sustainable cities, and also more livable cities. The big problem that we have, though, with infrastructure, and especially with digital infrastructure today, are these three here. And there's obviously more problems, but I think these are the most acute and the most pregnant problems that we have in smart cities and in digital infrastructure today. One of the most important ones is really around security, right? How do we actually secure our digital infrastructure? How do we actually secure IoT? There's always this funny joke, S in IoT stands for security, and there's obviously no S in IoT. So if we think about mission critical infrastructure, if we think about the energy grid, if we think about healthcare, we really need to take security first. We need to make sure that there's no single entity, there's no single point of failure that can take down the entire grid, that can take down the network, and that can take down access to this infrastructure. So that's the first thing, right? We need to take care of security. The second thing that we have today is that all of these big for-profit companies, they see smart cities as an opportunity to basically make more money for themselves and to make sure that their products, that their closed source ecosystems are being adopted. And I would say that this is a very dangerous game that we're playing there, because smart cities are our backbone, right? They are our future. And we need to make sure that no single company actually controls this future, because it is a lot of power that is being given up. And one of the most important mandates of a city government is to protect its citizens, and the data that is being gathered in these cities is really one of the most important resources that is fueling these digital economies, but it is also sort of automating and controlling these smart cities. So it's very important that these for-profit companies do not control, do not dictate how these cities are shaped up, but that is really done by either open source organizations, by organizations like FIWARE, right? And also more NGO structured entities that make sure that the mission critical infrastructure is sort of developed as a standard and not as a closed source ecosystem where there's vendor lock-in and so on. And the last big problem that is most often overlooked actually is the one around interoperability, where the way that we are building our infrastructure today does not take into account that we want to have one platform, we want to have one sort of application be able to communicate, be able to interoperate with other applications by easily sharing data. Right, and the backbone of interoperability is standardization. Right, so first of all, we have to work on standards, the way to interpret the data, the way to actually communicate this data, and then in addition to that, we need to have this trust layer so that when data is being exchanged or when value is being exchanged, that there's a standard that is being utilized to enable this value exchange. And interoperability is what enables the city to actually flourish, right? Because we want to have machines communicate and transact with each other without being limited. And all of these three problems are very exciting problems that can be solved with distributed ledgers, right? Because the way that we define distributed ledgers is really as this trust protocol, as this digital infrastructure that combines all these different industries, and that is sort of this open layer that can be accessed by machines, but also by humans to get access to these new applications that are being built in the smart city. The way that we like to define this sort of evolution is that we are moving away from smart centralization towards smart decentralization. Today, we basically have these centralized operators or these centralized platforms, companies, and so on, and especially the cloud, which gives us this intelligence. And where we have to move towards is really these IoT-based systems where the intelligence comes from the network. There's no data being transferred to the cloud, but the data is being shared within the network, like fog computing and edge computing, as they also call it, where the devices themselves are able to make these smart decisions, to be more reactive, to be more adaptive, and ultimately to build a more resilient and intelligent network out of it. And this is really enabled through blockchain, right, through distributed ledgers. Because what we need for this smart decentralization is really a sort of trust protocol that enables data to be shared, that enables data to be verified, and that also enables some of these processes to be automated and to be executed in a verifiable way, right? And this smart decentralization is really the future of these cities. And just looking into all of these, right? Distributed ledgers have applications in all of these different verticals. When it comes to mobility, it's like shared mobility. It's audit trails for supply chain so that you can verify where your goods come from. It's energy districts where you can trade energy peer-to-peer from one household to another household. It's digital healthcare and so on and so forth, right? There's use cases in all of these different verticals, and we can go into them later if you guys want, right? Talk more closely about what the use cases are in each of them. But I think the most important one, and what the smart city is really all about, is to put the citizen at the center of all of it. We want to empower the citizen to make decisions for themselves and ultimately own the data, own the value i.e. the assets that they control and that empower them to participate in this economy of the city. What I mean with that specifically is that I control my data, I control my identity, and I can decide with whom I want to share this data with. And I can also decide how I want to engage in this economy, whether I want to monetize my data by selling it, or if I want to provide other services to machines, to devices, and so on, right? Smart cities are all about these citizen-centric applications. And distributed ledgers actually enable us to build these citizen-centric applications. And at the core of all of this is digital identities. Whenever we work with a big company on use cases, and even before the inception of our project, IOTA, we always saw digital identity as sort of this holy grail, because ultimately what you need in a digital economy is a way to establish trust between two entities that do not know each other. The way that we establish trust today is through like trust anchors, where we say, hey, this is an established entity, and as such, you should trust that entity because of this and that reason. But trust in a digital world is really difficult to establish, right? Because you cannot always verify data. You might have people faking identities. You might have people stealing identities from others. And as such, it's difficult to establish this trust in an economy. And especially when we think about machines, how does a smart charging station trust an electric vehicle that is going to be paid, right? And obviously we could go through very standard processes through centralized systems and say like, hey, machine X is owned by company Y and so on. But what's really exciting about these future cities is that they are open ecosystems, right? Anybody can participate and anybody can engage within this economy. And that's why digital identities are really this important trust anchor in these smart cities. And that's why I personally also think that digital identities are really a crucial component to enable smart cities. And this is really identities for people, right? Human-centric identities, like whether we're thinking about a digital passport of sorts or an identity for organizations, right? Businesses, companies, NGOs, whatever, or also identity for devices. The beauty of distributed ledgers is because they are stored in this shared ledger, it makes it easy to share data. It makes it easy to interact between these different entities. And most importantly, to really establish the trust between these entities. And the way that digital identities work today is obviously there's an issuer. Let's say that there is a bank or that there is a government entity which would then certify a certain identity holder. And what's really nice is that because we have this shared ledger that is being utilized by all of the different entities that are participating in this value chain here, they are able to, first of all, certify that something happened. And what's really great about distributed ledgers is that this certification process can be verified by others. That means that I, as a business, if somebody wants to register at my business, for example, enter a bar, just a simple example, I am able to verify the certification. And blockchain is all about trust but verify. And this process of receiving data, of receiving a claim and being able to verify it is such a simple one, but it's such an amazing one to establish trust. And there's so many different applications that can be built through that process. And what's also really great is that digital identities are also a sort of extension to digital twins.
Dominic,
And if we think about the smart city, digital twins can be for buildings, it can be for objects. But the amazing part is that because we established a trust between these virtual and between these physical devices, we are able to transact. And this city only becomes smart if devices, if different entities are able to transact with each other trustlessly. So we might have a digital representation of a building that is transacting with another digital representation of a building to trade energy. But the beautiful part is because we're using a distributed ledger, we have the interoperability between the devices, between the objects. We have the security, right? We do not need to trust any centralized entity. We do not need to trust any financial institution. We're able to settle these transactions through the network, and everything is secured through this peer-to-peer network. And the last point is that we are in control of our assets, right? We can make decisions how to participate in these economies. And this is really how we're evolving into the future, right? The physical infrastructure is being augmented, is being improved by this digital infrastructure, which is the distributed ledger. And through that, we are able to enable complete new use cases, and they're able to transact in complete new ways between devices. And here's just an example also of healthcare. Maybe really quick on where we stand, and then we can maybe do some quick questions. When it comes to blockchain, we went through this traditional hype cycle where in 2017, everything was overhyped and everybody was overexcited about the potential of blockchain, about the use cases, and about the impact of it, right? After 2017, we sort of had this realization that, oh yeah, things take longer to develop. And what's most important at the moment is that these base protocols, so the way that you can think about distributed ledgers is that they're a protocol as important as TCP/IP, right? That's the backbone of the internet that enables this information exchange. Distributed ledgers are there to enable this value exchange, and value being data or assets, digital represented assets. And now we are at the stage where these distributed ledgers, the base protocols, are really becoming production ready. And we at IOTA are really on an exciting path to make the base protocol production ready, to then enable these use cases to actually be realized. And this is a really exciting time where we are now close to crossing this chasm and really enabling these use cases, and specifically focused around digital identity. But it goes beyond that, right? It includes tokenization. It includes digital twins. It includes the way that this machine economy, like as the backbone of the smart cities, are able to be built. And I really think that we are at a very exciting time right now, where we are really getting close with these open source protocols to be production ready for these use cases to be built. So yeah, I think that was a overview from my side on what I think is most important for smart cities. Maybe there are some questions.
Thank you, Dominic, very much for sticking to the time limit.
Yeah.
We actually have 2 minutes left of your slot. So if anyone would like to ask any questions, this is the moment. I didn't see any question, or there's one question in the chat. Valerie, do you want to say it yourself, or do you want me to read it out?
I think that you can read out loud because she couldn't.
Okay, so Valerie's question is, this is insightful, Dominic. How do you think we can make blockchain scalable and production ready? How can industry and community work together? Can you share another practical example?
Yeah, so the way to actually make it production ready is we've invested hundreds of millions of dollars into these base protocols over the last few years, like this entire blockchain space. And I think we're really at an exciting point where it's sort of coming together, right? Where we have introduced new concepts that are no longer based on blockchain, or that are further advancements to blockchain that are really exciting, that are sort of really proving themselves. And one thing that I want to emphasize is that when it comes to this digital infrastructure component, right now, there is no security framework for blockchains, right? We do not know if a blockchain is more secure than another blockchain just because it has more hashing power, for example. And that is exactly why I'm a big advocate for these open permissionless networks, because ultimately they are being battle tested right now in real time, right? These protocols have values of billions of dollars, and as such, there's a big incentive to actually attack them and to take them down. And I would argue that because of that, they also are supposed to be a better backbone for smart cities, because they're being battle tested in the real world as protocols. And that's really an exciting path. Ultimately, we are on the path to be production ready as an ecosystem, right? It's all really coming together. It just takes more time than we usually think it does. And these are really complex protocols where everything is coming together in terms of complexities, but we're getting there. And we are working together with universities and all of that. So that's exciting. And when it comes to practical examples, I guess I could, because I'm out of time, maybe I can send out some use cases that we have built. Like, we are really doing digital identity, and we're also really doing like mobility use cases and also supply chain. I'm not sure how you would want me to share some use cases.
Well, Dominic, you're actually accumulating more questions, and maybe I could ask everybody to actually use the question bucket or drop rather than the chat, because there's not time for you to answer all the questions that you have been asked. I'll just read a couple of them, but then we'll need to move on to Stefano. So you have a question from Peter de Jong about vehicle identities. Who should be the one to integrate them, the manufacturer or the government? And you have a question from Laurie Reynolds about standards. But what we'll do is we'll move on, and then we will try and get all these questions. If they're not answered in the round table, they will be answered, individually after the event. So we'll keep all of these questions if we haven't got enough time in your slots to answer them. So thank you very, very much, Dominic. I think for time, we need to now move on to the boss of the token project. I call him the boss, really. This is Stefano de Parfenis, the COO of FIWARE Foundation, who will now have 15 minutes to explain what the blockchain project is all about. Thank you, Stefano.
Thank you, Judith. I don't like to be called a boss, but I can survive with this. Okay, so thank you, first of all, for all of you being here, this exciting session. So I really loved a lot the speech of Dominic. And actually, he very well opened the ground for some of the things that I'm going to talk very quickly about what we are doing and some of the finding of this token project that has been funded under Horizon 2020 initiative of the European Commission. So since I would like to go directly to the points, sometimes I will skip some slides, but the slides are public available, so I will also happy to share them. So the aim of the mission of the project is aiming at providing enablers that allow the easy, of course, taking on board what Dominic said before, easy introduction of blockchain in the end, in order to accelerate the transformation of public services. And this with the aim and the goal that we want to pursue is to go towards open government models, and then to pursue the goals of and the principles of collaboration, transparency, and participation. So this is the key point. And this is based on, as I said, on blockchain as a service solution, but also open source solution, because we believe this is an important element. The solution also based in a way that can be really distributed, so on cloud, following a human-centric approach, and above all, also being cost-effective. So when we talk about this decentralized architecture, the idea is, of course, to build on top of blockchain, but in particular, taking on board what is happening in one very important initiative, that is the CEF Digital Initiative, which is delivering a set of building blocks for public administration, but not only in order to build cross-cutting borders applications all over Europe. And in particular, of course, the building block we are considering here in the token project is EPSI, is the European Blockchain Services Infrastructure, and the way this is coupled with another important building block that is the core of the FIWARE technologies, that is the context broker and the self-context broker building block. This will be made available through a sandbox infrastructure where our beneficiaries, but not only, will be able to experiment the technologies. And this is, so the idea is that experimenting these technologies, this create an experimental ecosystem that is replicable, not only according in the various use cases that the project is following, and then also this might answer a bit of the question that we had before, because I'm going to present 4 at least ideas of possible use cases, but also, as I said, through other use cases and applications. The aim is to create a toolkit for policymakers that are able to take on board not only the finding of the project, but also the finding of related initiatives, so that to make easy the adoption of those technologies. So the benefits are those that I shared before. So efficiency, because of the technology we want to adopt, the modularity, because the various the technology can be combined in a way that it can serve different use cases, different applications. Another benefits, which is important, is to support exactly the transparency. Of course, here all these things that I'm saying, they very much are based on what the discussion of Dominic said before. So it is important not to forget what he said, because everything that is here is because of what he said before. And this is very interesting, because we didn't prepare very much the presentation together, so that is very good in complementarity. And yes, so these benefits that I was saying before, they are very much based on what Dominic was saying before. So efficiency, flexibility, but more also importantly, transparency, the support of privacy, trustworthiness, and sustainability. The use cases that we where we are experimenting this technology, we call pioneer use case. They are 4, and they span different sectors, but there are at least 2, but that are very much, or 3 that are very much based on the topic of this meeting today. This workshop that about government. So first one in Poland is about supporting public funding distribution. So the idea is to reduce as much as possible administrative burden, and of course increase transparency in what is happening. And then the way of where this service is used in the grant distribution via competitive calls.
Stefano, 5 minutes.
Yes, a second one where I'm going to have a bit more insight is about public accounts management in Greece. This is done through the municipality of Katerini, where citizens participate in defining in support the definition of budget distribution and for the interest of citizen. Then another one on urban logistics. This is implemented in Belgium, and the idea here is to support the distribution of food from the producer to the consumers, so increasing the quality. This is mostly into the private sector. And the last one is about data valorization services in a city, and this is the city of Santander. So the project is in its youth at the moment. So we, after a first period of collecting and understanding the requirements through a good involvement of citizens, we now deploy the infrastructure and we are starting implementation of the use case. Let me speak a bit more about this use case number 2 in Greece. Here, as I said, the idea is that a municipality announces polls on how to use the budget. Then the citizen can do, of course, vote the polls, but also propose new areas of interest where polls should be done. Then the results will be taken on board by the municipality, either refining the policies or, of course, going to implement those distribution. And here you have some screenshots that they show that there is a dashboard at the municipality level for verifying the polls overview, so which are open, on which category of funding, and so on. So there is, of course, the same dashboard, a similar dashboard for the citizens, so the way they can see where are the polls open, and also to provide their own vote. And then you can even, the idea is to provide the vote either anonymous or also not anonymous way, and this is rather important element. And then, of course, the managers of the procurement, they have their own dashboard where they can visualize the way the funding are spent. An interesting element that is important when you adopt you put on board technology, you may say, okay, but this is for Greece. Do the Greek citizen of this municipality, they all speak English? Not necessarily. So in a year, you can see that even if from a project point of view, of course, we need all the beneficiaries understand what is going on. In fact, this implementation can be customized in terms of language. So this will the citizen can turn into the language that he or she speaks, to understand what is going on and to provide their idea. So, if I'm happy to conclude here my intervention today, emphasizing the fact that what we want to do in a token is exactly this. So create an environment and with evidences that introducing digital, so distributed ledger technologies is possible, but of course has to follow certain approach. And of course, the lesson learned that we are going to hear will be turned into recommendations for the public authorities. So thank you.
Stefano, thank you very much for that. In fact, this is why blockchain is transformative, because governments could literally have their transparency increase dramatically, and government corruption could decrease dramatically if blockchain is used in these positive ways. There's 1 minute, so if anyone has a very burning question, it would be great to know it now. Otherwise, we can move on to the next presentation. There's nothing in the chat or in the question, but is there any question out there?
I think there are one question for Stefano, or two.
Can you say it, because I can't see it?
Which the main risks that you envision in the adoption of the technologies proposed within token, and how you plan to address them?
Sorry, which?
Which are the main risks you envision in the adoption?
Well, the risk is that there are technologies that will come from the top, and they are not a process in the engagement of both the citizen, but also the people working at the public administrations. So, and this is a real risk, particularly when we talk about certain aspects that really affect the way of people is working. So because of this, the project is following in agreement with the citizen a process that is of continuous engagement of the creation, the solution, but starting from, of course, the requirements, but also step by step on the evolution of the technology, so that everybody is confident. This is one of the main element of interest, because you cannot certainly introduce technologies that are disruptive, as it is blockchain, in fact, without the full engagement of the stakeholders that are involved.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Stefano, for that. In that case, we'll continue with the program, and actually it's my turn, so I have to speak and also control the time I'm speaking, which is not going to be so easy. I'm going to share my screen. Could you confirm, please, that you can see my presentation now?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. So this is a longer presentation, which is starting to kind of showcase all the research we've done so far in just over 1 year of the token project. And obviously, I'm not going to be able to explain it all today, but just to show you what we've been doing, and then I'll jump to part 3. This presentation would talk to a general audience about blockchain, so I can skip all of that because we're all interested in blockchain in this talk. But the big section 2 is what we've done in our team in Cantabria. Is we've read everything that there is to read on blockchain in government, in public services, and we've done a systematic literature review of the pros and the cons, let's say the risks and the costs and the advantages of blockchain for governments, for citizens and workers all around the world. And so we've published that, and I'm not going to present that today, but I could share the paper with you if you're interested. But I'm going to share now, in this few minutes I have, the latest part of research we've done, which is the part that really interests us as social scientists, because the beauty of this kind of project of token is we have people who know about technology working with social scientists. So social scientists can give ideas about what's happening in the human world to people who know about technology, and we can implement it in government. So this is the beauty of the token project. So what we've been allowed to do, thanks to this project, is to get access to the technology and also access to the government, and ask the question, what do public sector workers really think about blockchain? Now, I'm going to jump through all my slides just quickly. Sorry if that made you feel bad. So this is the question, what do they really think? Now, of course, if we ask them directly, what do you think about blockchain? They might say they've never heard of it, or they might say they like it just because they expect us to say certain things. So we have to be very careful how we ask them and what we ask them. And that's what we've tried to do. So I can't go into these slides in any detail because there's just simply not time. But we all know, as workers, all of us are workers, we know that our relationship with technology is ambiguous. We might think, on the one hand, technology has some positive sides. As a lecturer and a researcher, technology might be very good for my students right now because I can give courses online. My students can learn in a different way. But also, potentially, I'm a lazy person who doesn't want to learn the new technological, I don't want to take up a course on new technology, or I'm worried more that technology might take over my work, or actually, in the end, that technology might make me unemployed. So there's positive and negative sides to technology from the individual point of view. And I've actually written on this with some other colleagues, looking at artificial intelligence as well as other technologies and how it might affect workers. Well, it depends actually on where and how and the profile of the workers. But I don't have time to go into that today. That's just a very general story about the relationship between work and technology. But now going to the more specific research of token, what we've done is we've done a vignette experiment. This is not a standard survey where we stand outside, the door of the government and ask what they think about blockchain. It's a special way of asking people what they think, but to try and capture their real perceptions, because what we talk about is an imaginary scenario, a hypothetical scenario. So to follow my slides a little bit, we all know that, government is implementing information technology, not just the private sector, also the public sector. And it's not enough just to implement the technology. We need to have acceptance of that technology by the public workers. Otherwise, we're wasting our time. So it's important to know how public officials perceive this new technology. So what we did is we prepared some text, very short text, based around a hypothetical situation. This is not what is happening right now, it's what it might happen. But we don't even talk about that. And we don't use the word blockchain, by the way, in the vignettes. We talk about features of blockchain without using the word. And so we build hypotheses into our questions after having read a lot of literature on work and technology. Now, this is a quick vision of Santander. I took this from a newspaper just to give you the idea of, Smart Santander is one of the most famous smart cities in the Spanish context. And this is in a way what they already do. We do have quite a lot of advanced technology. But at the moment in the corner, you can see the student card and the lecturer card. I have one of these, but we don't really have a smart identity card in Santander. Santander University, Canterbury University, was one of the first to implement this, and it has some smart features, but it's not a proper smart ID card, but we have a basis of one. So the point is, in Santander City, we do not have a smart digital identity as yet. And so the vignette was built around this hypothetical digital identity that we could perhaps, let's say, establish in the future. So what we did is we launched this vignette just this year, January to February, in the Council of Santander. And we're hoping to replicate it in Leuven in Belgium and Katerini in Greece. And the invented scenario is that we're going to introduce a digital identity for the residents of Santander City. Of course, this does not exist. So what we want to know are two basic things. What is the effect of the characteristics of blockchain on public officials accepting it? And also, what are the effects of the characteristics of blockchain making public officials trust it? To what extent do they think blockchain will help people trust government? So we ask well what they think, but we also ask them what they think their colleagues think, to know what they think their peers think. And we also ask them what they think citizens will think. Now, today, there's no way I have time to go through all the literature that we've been collecting as a team. But basically, to make it very simple, there's benefits of blockchain, time saving, reduction of paperwork, everyday errors, etc., etc. And there's costs, potential costs. Workers might not have the skills. It might mean a change to how they're organized. It might mean a change to their job, or it might even mean in the future losing their job. Now, blockchain, as you all know, can be configured in different ways. This is from a paper by a scholar called Olnes. But just to make it very simple, we're not presenting a permissionless blockchain that anybody could get access to. We're supposing there's going to be a permissioned blockchain. However, the permissioned blockchain could give more or less access to the public. The public could intervene or get into the blockchain to a greater or lesser extent. Now, following this guy's paper, Olney's, we decided to call this reading and writing. Effectively, what we mean is we have two kinds of blockchains to present in this vignette. One is where citizens can actually write on the blockchain their data and read widely in the blockchain. And the other scenario is the citizens cannot write on the blockchain and cannot read the blockchain. Only the public servants can do that. Now, the hypothesis could be done either way. We could expect that, for example, when citizens can read and write more, the civil servants could reject the technology or accept it. We could go either way with this. I don't know if you follow my argument, but we could expect that the civil servants could reject it or accept it. But we have to put it one way, so let's put it this way. The more public the blockchain is, the more likely the civil servant will accept it, their peers will accept it, and the citizens will accept it. The more public the blockchain is, we think that the civil servant will trust local government, their colleagues will trust local government, and the citizens will trust local government. These are the results. With 149 observations. What we saw is when we make our blockchain more public, when people can write on the blockchain, the civil servants are more likely to accept it. They think that their other colleagues will accept it, but no results that are significant for citizens. So we don't think, the civil servants don't think citizens will accept it more or less. When there's more public writing on the blockchain, civil servants think people will trust government more. They think their colleagues will think the same, but they don't know what citizens will think. So these are quite interesting results. I'm going to come back to, I don't just share that anymore. Pretty interesting results from Santander. What's going to be interesting is to see whether Leuven public civil servants say the same or not, and Catarini. So they're provisional results from today, and I'll stop there. I've got 2 minutes for questions.
We have some questions for you in the chat, Judith.
Okay, let me have a look.
Yeah, there is one about from Alexander Carballo about scalability, security, and sustainability of blockchain. Did the token project take Ethereum version 2 into account?
I can't see that question, but I don't know. Maybe Stefano knows. I don't know that. One question I have is from Val, and it says, standards are key to the model. How do we engage the communities which are impacted? I'm not really sure I understand that question, to be honest.
You mean the last one?
Yeah, I can see Val's question. She says it's from the audience. Standards are key to the model. I don't know which model I don't really understand the question. Which model do they mean? How do we engage communities which are impacted? I mean, all I can say is a very obvious answer to this. One of the beauties of this kind of project, a token, is that you get the government in, you get the technology people in, and you get social scientists in. Without this kind of project, getting access to government is virtually impossible. So this is a fantastic opportunity to get government to allow you to actually do this kind of vignette survey, to really find out what their public workers feel and perceive about new technology. So that would be my answer to that, but I'm not 100% sure if that's what was meant. I have another question here. Maybe I should answer it. How do I see the use of DLT to avoid or overcome this crisis and future crisis by governments? I think this is a fantastic question from Jorge in Genesis. How disaster recovery can be upgraded? But I think it's a fantastic question. And I do just personally feel that blockchain is not always being used in the way to make the world a better place. We all know about, the dominance of it in the financial sector. It could have positive and negative consequences. In government, blockchain could for sure increase the transparency of government and increase methods of curbing corruption. And so depending on what you mean by this crisis, you know, because there's many things. I mean, obviously blockchain could be more efficient for government. It could save money for government. It has many of these potentials, but it could also be revolutionary in the sense of making government more open and more visible. So, I mean, that's my personal opinion, personal answer to that. It's actually 3 o'clock. So unless there's any burning questions, I think we should perhaps move on to our expert sessions of the kind of round table that we're going to organize now, shall we? So from that point of view, we start with expert sessions. How is your organization shaping digital government? How has or will your organization use DLT towards digital government? And here, well, the first person we have to speak is Montse Guardia, who's going to talk on why are we talking of technological convergence and ecosystems to explain blockchain. So Montse, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Judith, and thank you all for being here and for inviting me. I will thank also, it was very interesting, all the previous panelists, and lovely the ideas that are there, no, that are not just ideas, are already implemented somehow. So this is a strategic roadmap that we are following, and let me share with you what is our point of view from Alaska, and also why we are thinking that, no, why we think this, and in a very few minutes, no, Judith, you will help me to control the timing here, and just to ensure that we can do it in a few minutes, but very clear, and then have the debate, no, talk about it. So I'm just opening. I hope you can see the screen. Let me know. Okay, yeah, I think it's there. So I will start just, we always start with this idea, no? Alaska was founded in 2017, no? When we see, remember the slide from Dominic, we were in this situation where we were very excited about this technology, and we knew one thing, this technology was going to be, and is going to be a global network. So we need to think about it, and this is why in Alaska we start with this view of the globe, and outside the globe, and we need to think about that, no? Something more at the level of the overall good, no, and not just the tree or the roots of the tree. So, and this is something in terms of strategy to highlight, no? We are moving to another type of digital architecture. We are moving to a mesh, no, a network connected, decentralized in different levels, but for sure we are participating all in that exchange of digital information. We are talking about telecommunication. We are telecommunicating in a different way. So we cannot compare what is the current right now or current systems in web and mobile and decentralized architecture with what we are starting to do in DLT or decentralized architecture. So that's an important element. Why is important this element? Because this new way, and I'm not going to talk about blockchain, but I'm going to talk about the benefits. If we think that we are going to telecommunicate in this new way of using internet, where everybody can participate somehow, we are gaining in the way how it's built one main thing. This is based on cryptography. It's based on having security from the very beginning. So we are decentralized, we are gathering data, as Dominic was saying, from sensors, from machines, and we are doing it much more secure than what we have right now, or at least the level of complexity. No? To have the same level of security, we have more complexity in a centralized way to do it than in a decentralized way. So this is very important to keep in mind. And this is in mind that this is innovation. We have a new tool, and with this new tool, we will do things differently. So we are innovating. We are doing something we haven't done before. So this is about risk management and the willingness to do something different. So in terms of social and involving the city, what we know for sure is who is in the city are the citizens, but moreover, there is a lot of services and there is some administration around what we need as a citizen in a city. And do doing and by having the capability to gain all this data in a decentralized way, very personalized, very arriving to everybody, this is the combination of the physical world and the digital world. And that idea has been already said before, but what is important for us is that everybody can participate. Everybody can have a note on this exchange. And if we are in a city where the administration can contract transversally all the services, imagine that you don't need to have the electricity, the waste, everything related to mobility. So you have different contracts right now. If you could have a view of the city in transversal and these contracts move in a different way, it's a change of organization of your public administration in the city. And that is what we think is very interesting and disruptive. And this is why Alaska has worked with this idea that everybody needs to participate. This is inclusivity. And this inclusivity, this to be inclusive, needs to have an idea of innovation with a triple helix. So academia, industry, and government must participate in the association, must participate to have a good ideas, creating use cases. And it's not just about ideas, it's about also we need to have the members, and these members coming from these three areas needs to commit to do two things, to create the infrastructure, to ensure that the infrastructure is built in a way that can serve and can be democratic use for everyone, and this is include the digital identity. We need to standardize, as we have been saying. This is open source. This is about doing things in a standardized way to be able to reproduce it in a massive way. And this is about collaborate to build the basis and compete to create the use cases, not to give and to gain more digital economy on that. So thinking on that, and here we are promoting, I will not stand, but what we think is that blockchain needs to be permissioned at this moment. So we think in public, but open it. And we need to work in parallel in not just technology, but to juridical, so what is the legal framework, what is the resilience of what we are building, what are the use cases, and who and the talent, who is going to be prepared to work on that, because that's true, Judith. Maybe some jobs are going to disappear, but the truth is that human beings, we are able to adapt and to be ready to be working in a different jobs. So I'm finishing because I know, Judith, I'm going to. This is about making a network, and this network can be only done if we make everybody participate on that. So we need to target audiences, and we need to understand that there is a lot of innovation coming from startups, and they need to participate too. Collaborate, and we will see some use cases from some of our members are related to register, and related to have traceability, and are related to have a definition of token and a definition of digital identity. That is the basis to do later on the agreements on smart contracts and build the use cases in the city. So without the participation of the public administrations in a global way, it's going to be very difficult to build really the new digital economy coming from DLTs. So for us, digital governance is a part and is an active part of what needs to be happening. So thank you very much. I try to keep the timing, Judith. I hear some noise. I don't know if it's myself, but I'm trying to go. I leave to you, Judith.
Thank you very much, Montse. Probably the best is to go straight on to the second talker, the next second speech, and then ask the questions all together. So what we're going to do in the next speech, I'm going to collect all the questions, and then we'll leave all of that time. I have questions from Brian, I have questions from Laurie Reynolds, I have questions from Alexander. Now I can see them all. So we'll continue with our talk, and then we'll answer the questions during the round table. So next we have Miguel Angel Calero Fernandez, who's the co-founder of Realize. So it's all yours.
Okay, can you see my screen? Yeah. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So thank you, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. us, to expose or to tell us how we are doing as a startup SMB in the blockchain world. Okay, first of all, we are a digital product studio with working in blockchain cognitive services, that is artificial intelligence for vision and language and advanced chatbots. And we have a strong position on research and development. And we are collaborating with a lot of companies in this area. Right now, we're based in Spain, but we have people in Europe, and we are working with companies all over the world, mainly US and Central Europe. Regarding blockchain and DLTs, we are working mainly in two areas. One is digital identity, and I will show you how we're doing in 3 projects, and trusted shared data. And also there are like 3 projects related to that that we call success stories, because in the end, all these projects are working either in production or piloting them. One is Polder, that it's a consortium project for data exchange, reuse, and monetization for smart cities. It's really related of everything that Dominic told us, because what we're trying to do is to give to all the mid-sized cities in the European Union a smart decision support system where they can manage data wisely. Okay, right now everything in a smart platform are separated, and we want to mix everything, and not only in the part of the city, but also in the part of the data producers. We are developing, and we have developed Libra, that is a module, new component for FIWARE, that will allow decentralized data governance, data traceability and provenance, and data monetization. We're also working with smart ports in data integration, visualization, and reuse. Again, we are using FIWARE as our building block with a layer on top, and then connecting with TradeLens, that is the most widely used blockchain in the maritime sector. That will give them treasure data, cross-domain decisions, and will lever digital transformation. Also, we're working with UNICEF in digital identity for trafficking victims. That is an ongoing project where we are trying to really confront a problem that is widely it's really big. It's more than 1 billion persons. They need to they are providing a way for NGOs to cooperate to give transparency and more security to the trafficking victims in the relationship with administration and also with other agents. There we're using the Alastra ID framework, identity framework, and also using the infrastructure. Another project for protecting women and children immigrating in Spain that is called Red Others, that helping women and children that doesn't have an identity when they reach Spain, and they are there are a network of more than 23 organizations that need to share in some way this sensitive data and need to protect those data from third parties. But also we have been doing some pilots in proof of concepts with immunization passport that goes beyond COVID passports. That it's more related to vaccination and immunization, all your historic health data in your mobile phone. Okay, so we have created a whole application for that, and designing a system that allows interoperability across health institutions with the user in the center. What we have learned along the way. Mainly 4 things that we wanted to share with you. Now, one, blockchain is not cool anymore. we are avoiding the word blockchain in everything that we offer, because it's really like a spot with, everything around the money. What we have learned is that digitization comes first. There's a lot of AI and blockchain projects that doesn't have digital processes, and they need, that is the first thing to do. Third one, we need to focus on value. Blockchain is cool, but it's not cool anymore. So blockchain alone, that doesn't mean anything. So we need to be clear about the value that brings blockchain. And Judith also was saying, blockchain is really transparent when it's working well. Nobody detects if it's a blockchain there around. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much, and I'm open for any question that you may have, and really glad to be here.
Thank you very much for that talk, Miguel Angel. Now we have a round table until 15:40. Now there's 2 or 3 lovely questions for me that I wasn't able to read previously because there was a delay on the messages. So if you don't mind, I'll abuse my position as kind of chair in a way, and I'll answer these questions if that's okay. And in the meantime, while I'm speaking, if you have any questions for the speakers just now, or any of the other questions, the speakers previously, you can just write them on the chat, because I think it's working perhaps better than the question bucket or bag or whatever, and I will try and get them answered. So I had a lovely question from Brian Plummer. I really like this. What have we seen that works to encourage or enforce adoption, particularly amongst users or stakeholders that are likely losers as a result of the fundamental characteristics of DLT? How to get adoption at points of likely corruption? So thanks, Brian. I think there's 2 answers to that. There's the individual level, the individual worker, and then there's a collective, the government as a collective with a culture. So we've done our survey in particular at the individual level. So, the typical public servant either is good at a public servant or she's a bad one. We don't know, are they a kind of someone who's really motivated to serve the public, or are they kind of lazy and not really interested? Well, that depends on your theory of the public sector and the individuals within it. But of course, training, education, talking about the blockchain, trying to convince people who work in public government that they're actually doing a good thing for the citizens, in my case for students, they could all be motivating factors at the individual level. And at the collective level, I think we need to talk about good practice. Some governments around the world are already implementing blockchain, and we can say, this has actually caused some good in this community, and this is good, this is best practice. So we can try and spread blockchain uptake around the government on this idea of best practice. You're absolutely right. I'm a bit cynical like you. How to get adoption at points of likely corruption? Well, that's exactly where we should be getting it, right? We don't need more transparency where things are already transparent. We need transparency where things are a little bit hidden. So all of this idea about, for example, public funding, funding distribution, all this idea of registers, property, land registers, and all of this is really where blockchain could be very, very interesting. And then the second question, very quickly, I don't want to take up too much of the floor, was the question from Laurie Reynolds, which is about digital exclusion, especially in the health sector and mental health, and that we need to do better with co-design. Well, I couldn't agree more. That is something that many projects have woven into their structure, but I think it's also something that gets forgotten. And I think when you look at all the literature, as we have done, what we see is the blockchain in the end is actually designed by somebody. We had a talk this morning about, well, who is it that's designing the blockchain? Is it in the public interest? Is it in private interest? Is it for profit? Or has it got more, more beneficial and open source and better values? So, of course, it depends who is. The blockchain is not just one thing. It depends how it's built. It depends how it's configured, and then the effects it will have. My final question was, is blockchain a panacea? Well, of course, the answer is no. That's easy. Which public services is it really having an impact on? I think I go back to the idea of transparency and avoidance of corruption. All of these processes of collecting data and register of data and sharing of data, I think this is where blockchain has got really good potential. So I'm not going to take up any more time on the floor, but I've answered my questions. So shall we see if there's any more questions? I've been talking, so I haven't been able to read it. We have a question from Jorge Aponte from Genesis. What an incredible application to protect people from human trafficking. This must be for you, Miguel. How this application was introduced? What's the story behind the app? Miguel, would you mind taking that?
Yeah, is right now what we are implementing with not only indeed with UNICEF, but we are already engaged in some other projects that are related, are more to allow the refugees or potential victims of trafficking to hold all their documentation and be able to show in a credible, in a trusted way to either administrations or other NGOs. There is a really a problem with that, because a lot of those people are really changing from their address, their home address. A lot of really usually, and they lost either papers, or some administration doesn't really recognize that those papers are really official. So there is a problem there that is really provoking. One, that we don't really exactly know how much refugees are really here in Spain or in Europe. We don't have a number right now. Probably they are duplicated or really don't exist, or most of them go and disappear from the world because they don't have the bureaucratic process really harm their trust in the administration, and they prefer to go like not black but the underground. Okay, and when women especially disappear from the system, they are really are an easy prey for any other or of sexual workers, mafias, and so on. So we need to give them a way to trust and to allow their history, their identity, and their documents, so we can provide them a support network to really bring them home in Europe.
We actually have an older question from Alexandra Cavallo, who asked about scalability, security, and sustainability of the blockchain. Did the token project take Ethereum version 2 into account? Stefano, would you like to answer that one?
Yes. Yeah. Can you hear? Can you see me? Yes.
I can hear you. Yes, I can
Yes.
see you as well.
So you want to repeat the questions? Then, if we take seriously issues about security, you mean?
Let me find it, Stefano, because it's right at the top. Here it is. About scalability, security, and sustainability. Did the token project take Ethereum version 2 into account?
Serious version 2? Well, we are working with the current standards and implementations, and in particular what is provided by EPSI, which is this building block of Safe Digital, European Commission, and we built on top of blockchain that are existing. So in fact, several of our pioneer use case, they take benefit, and thank you for being here for Alastria, we built on top of that. So then yes, the answer is definitely yes.
So basically, I suppose we can, just really invite questions in general, or comments that people want to say in a more informal way.
If I can start, I may. I would like to elaborate more, because we are talking about government and public services, and maybe also hear the opinion of and Miguel Angel about the question of Brian. which I think is key. So, which is the trade-off at the end of the day, which is the trade-off of adoption. The technology is taking into account the fact that there may be some reluctance of implementing. So from a social point of view, what does it mean introducing these technologies? So maybe you may share your experience, Monse and Miguel Angel, on this, because I think this question is really very important.
Go ahead, Monse, if you want.
Yes, I think a little bit what we need to understand, and I agree with Miguel. So a little bit, what we had been, what Miguel Angel was presenting, what Miguel was presenting is clearly a use, of different technologies, and this is different projects and different technologies. So in Alastria, what we promote, or we also, it's our mindset, and this is the mission, is as the technology is still on development, what we really need is that it's structured and solid to have a good usage and to have a standard on top of it. And this is why also this project token is relevant, because the critical thing here is not just go for different technologies in different ways of developing, but just use the support of having open software, open communities, test it really strongly, and also develop it in a way that is going little by little on standardization. And this is a cycle, this is like an agile circle. It will be first one cycle, and we will have a first iteration, and that will be probably giving us a level of maturity, not a top level, a first level, then we will iterate again, and this is how we are building not just the software, everything. So we have a first iteration on software, first iteration on legal framework, first iteration on standards, and we go to the next iteration. The good news is that after 3 years, we are going to another iteration that talks about interoperability. We are at this moment mature enough to talking about interoperability. So I don't know if I'm answering the question, but the mindset that we have is that if we don't work in this idea of agile development, including economical, not just the technological expertise, but also the expertise on public administration and governance, the expertise on economics and legal, and we need this expertise with a clear mindset of change, that we need to hear you, but we need also that you are in a mindset to make things better. When we talk change is to continuous improvement. This thing about continuous improvement is not something new. We have been applying it over decades. When we try to do not just software, but also industrialization and hardware. In any case, what we know for sure is that means DLT, means decentralization, means everybody be part of it, and we need to listen and have a more clear, active listening for everyone. I don't know if I'm answering it, Stefano.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Monse. So what we can say is that this continuous improvement process, if I can summarize what you nicely said, is not just for the technology, but it's a holistic way. So we have to encompass all the aspects that makes adoption a reality. So maybe your experience on the matter.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. Indeed, I think that it's necessary, and the maturity of the technology obliges us to really go and experiment. But I think that one of the main topics that in our team we are talking about right now, it's more about user experience than technology. I think that we really, in the end, both public servants or private companies really don't understand very well blockchain, but they really don't understand 5G. Okay, they don't know what is behind that at all, but they want to use it, and then most of the time we are really most concerned about, here's the block, here you can see the log, you can see how it is written, you can see a block explorer. Okay, that doesn't mean nothing for most of the people outside this room. Okay, they want to see a well-designed dashboard. They want to experiment how this blockchain adds value in the end, and they want to see something nice, because I think that we work a lot with startups, helping them with their digital businesses. The era of the really ugly MVPs has passed. The users want something nicely designed and something that is really feel comfortable. Even, and I'm going to say something that maybe is okay, it's not easy to say, but even when there is no blockchain behind that, because sometimes we need to really start proving the user experience, improving the value added, and then go deep in the technology. I'm not telling that solutions may be faked, but we need to put the focus on the user. We need to focus on the user experience, on the value added, and then go beyond that. And that's our experience, because mostly we are working with UNICEF, with Universidad de Comillas, with Cruz Roja, with Fundación Emet Arcoiris. Most of the time, they don't have, they are not tech people. They really are trying blockchain because blockchain solve a problem, or seems to solve a problem, but they want to have nicely designed apps. If they don't have that, it will be like, okay, that's cool, but it's only for devs.
Yes, there is another, I think, very interesting question that is now in the questions. So just to turn the coin from the other side. So now we were exploring a bit the aspect of ethics, let's say, of the adoption of the technologies. So, and then the question here, which I think is very important, is which are the business model and the streams, how to get money out of blockchain, in particular, distributed ledger technologies. I think your experience here is also.
Yes, and I like the question, because this is something that is we need to explain it the right way, right? Because we always think I make an investment, I have a return, and I can easily do the business case in economics. That's right when you know what you are doing, right? It's not about innovation. No? And this is something I always explain. When you do something innovative, you don't know yet what you are going to discover, no? And this is the magic, no? If not, we will not have any disruption, no? So allow us, no? And this is I think what we need, and this is why we need visionaries, because you need to have enough visionaries in the investment world to have their thinking further and try to invest what we call the test for bet, no, the bet for test. If we don't have investment for testing and learning, you are never going to have a business case that could be disruptive and then have a growth, no, a huge growth in economics in few years, no. And that is quite interesting, because we in Europe we are quite conservative on this idea, no, like I need to know exactly when my money is going to give me a return in a very short term. Okay, that's completely fair, but if you are going to really to have and to make a change, you need to have the enough maturity to say, I have money to put it in a risk, because I don't know what is going to happen, but I know that I'm going to learn. And maybe this first idea I have is not sustainable, is not going to be solid enough, but in the way, no, while I have been investing that, I will learn, and that learning will make me to step over. And that is another way of understanding business for blockchain. Thinking that there is these cycles, these iterations, and if you are not investment in the first cycle, you are not going to learn. So very difficult you are going to be in the next one, where it will be the disruption, and whoever has been invest will gain, no, will have a huge return of investment. So that is for Europe. I think in other, you see, in Asia and Australia and the States and Americas, there is another thinking. I think the vision of blockchain is really this one. No, we know that at the beginning, we are at the beginning of a new technology, and we are at the beginning, we invest on it. Maybe we don't have a success business case, but the next one will be successful. So, and that is what we need to learn in Europe, no, also to do that. So this is something we are working on a split, no, the phases of investment, and just have a thinking on the next step. And right now, investing in blockchain is quite simple. It's investing on electronics, because what we know for sure is that we have a threshold on what is the hardware that will be around the globe collecting data and allowing us, no, to have this convergence in Internet of Things with blockchain, and this is what Dominic was telling us. But moreover, we have seen that in the token project. And the second thing is in software that is broad enough to be developed for more than one person, right? So what we are seeing is that this is about open source, and if you do open source and you do it in an open way, more people will use that, more stability in the next step of the applications, and then more potentially a use case on DLT. And the third thing, and coming back to Miguel Angel and Miguel, is very important, splitting. This is front-end technology. So we know that the technology in the front end, in the interaction with the human being, is changing in terms of we are using voice, we are using a sight, we are using all the human being sensors, no? We are putting that in the software, and this is front end, but the back end is much more complex. This is cybersecurity, and this is where we need to trust in investment. No, we are going to have something and more need to be more secure in the network, and that means investing in DLT.
What do you think? Because if I may, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm really, I totally agree with you on the vision of different vision in different companies, mostly US versus EU companies. I think that one thing that probably are not, maybe what's wrong are the KPIs in the end. We are doing in artificial intelligence, it's very usual to have like proof of concepts or pilots prior to going to a production level applications. In that case, for the proof of concept, the KPIs are different, are not return on investment. It's an exploration, and the KPIs that you have to achieve are, okay, we need to get a success, we need to achieve that percentage of success in reading that, in understanding, in the number of users onboarding, but there is no return on investment. They really design an experiment that is not related to return on investment because there are some companies that really understand that it's cheaper to invest in knowledge, learning by doing, than in any other form. And that is really. I think that KPIs are everything in innovation, and usually not sure everybody, but there is a pattern there between innovative companies that have the right KPIs and not innovative companies or more traditional companies that are only buying products that others are producing.
Well, actually, I was going to ask a question, but we don't have time. So, I mean, I found that all fascinating about how Europe is doing versus perhaps other areas in terms of innovation more generally. But now it is 15:40. I'm afraid I should be very boring and say, let's move on. Thank you very much to both of you for your contributions. We're going to now have a closing speech, the possibilities of blockchain policy. We have been asking about policy. Here's some answers about policy in the member states. And we have João Rodrigues Frade, who's the lead architect of the CEF Architectural Office and head of sector digital building blocks at the European Commission. I know João's got a lot to say, but he won't be able to say a lot of it because he only has a 20-minute slot. But I know that there's a lot to say. So welcome, João. Thank you very much. I'll give you 5 minutes warning when you've done your 15 minutes. So you have 5 minutes to finish. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me well? And can you
We
see
can
me?
hear you.
Yes,
We can see
yes.
you and we can hear you. If you want
Uh,
to share a screen, I'll let you know if it's working.
Okay, I will try. I'll do my best. And let's see. Share the entire screen. Is it going to work? Moment of suspense. Okay. Do you see my slides? Very well. I didn't want to interrupt the discussion that was happening because I find it very interesting, and I hope that my presentation contributes a little bit to continuing that discussion. So I will try to be as short as possible, and at the same time try to link to the discussion about, is the investment on blockchain going to make sense? And I will approach it from the public sector perspective, and I will talk about the European blockchain services infrastructure that is commonly known as EBSI, and why the European Commission and the member states are currently investing quite some money and also time in this new technology. So my first point will be to try to compare what we are doing in terms of blockchain and what has been done in the past with the commonly known data exchange technologies. How do they relate to one another and what are the differences? I will then talk a bit about the EBSI initiative, and I will finalize to give a couple of examples of the services we will be putting in place for the benefit of citizens and businesses. So the first question is, what does blockchain bring onto the table? Why is it interesting for the public sector to look at blockchain? And the first idea, of course, is that governments in general, the public sector, produces a lot of documents, and citizens and businesses need these documents to carry out daily life procedures, like when you change address, or when you go abroad and you want to start a new job. You need to provide these documents as evidence for trust to be, let's say, ensured between you and the other party, and that party can be coming again from the public or the private sector. So historically, what we have is, of course, that these documents are on paper, and that you go to a governmental entity, and if you are abroad, you have to travel, and then you will request that document. You will wait that the governmental entity issues a copy, an official copy of the document, and then you receive it, and sometimes that takes a long time and many steps along the way. What we have seen, and of course now with the pandemic even more, is that everything is going to become at some point digital, and that people expect to be able to request and receive these documents in a digital format. And one thing that we cannot forget, of course, is that we are talking about the public sector. So we need to keep in mind that even if we move to a fully digital society, we need to have trust. And this is why blockchain is interesting for the European Commission and the member states. I'm showing you some numbers on fraud, or just the possibility of faking digital information. And of course, when you move from paper to digital, the possibility to fake information becomes even easier than in the past. And therefore, if we move to digital, and we understand how easy it is to forge or falsify or change these documents, we need technology to make it as simple as possible to verify the authenticity and the integrity of those documents. And we need to balance these two things. We need to make it easy and accessible, but at the same time, we need to make it also very easy to verify that the documents are authentic. So let's look at what governments are doing. So on one hand, we have to ensure the integrity and authenticity of the digital documents. There are different ways to do this, not only blockchain, but blockchain can indeed support it. We need to ensure the link between the document and the identity of who presents that document. So that's fundamental, the digital identity of the holder of the document. We have to ensure that the document was issued by a trusted entity or a trusted institution. So there is a link between the document and the issuer. And finally, we have to make it possible for the verifier to, again, check the integrity of the document, the identity of the holder, and who has issued this document and when the document was issued. So let's look at the classical way to solve this problem. Because blockchain is not the only way, this is not a new thing as such. The way that we have typically solved this problem when going digital is the document exchange pattern. So the citizen goes to a portal, is either able or not to use his EID. Sometimes the verifier uses the same portal, sometimes not. Typically, the portal uses a secure information exchange protocol that enables the data to be retrieved from an authentic data source real time. So that can be the population register, can be the land register, can be the business register. And the trust is oftentimes kept through a sort of public infrastructure. So certificates are used to ensure entity, the identification, authenticity of the players involved. So what we are seeing now is that there is an alternative pattern emerging that can also, in my opinion, solve exactly the same problem of ensuring the trust of digital documents. And I would not say that blockchain is the only element that needs to be considered. I believe there are three elements to be considered. On one hand, the blockchain as a new trust anchor, so a sort of new public key infrastructure of sorts. The verifiable credentials format, which is a very interesting format for data minimization, and this idea of the digital wallet, where you will have an app to keep the documents and to present them to the verifiers, you meaning the citizen or the business. So we have to look at these three elements, and I don't think we can look at blockchain alone because that would not be interesting. So blockchain is, I would say, fundamental because it's the point of truth, is the point of trust of the model. And here is how the model is being thought through and piloted by governments, including EBSI, the European Blockchain Services Infrastructure. So what we are doing is what you see on the screen there. The user or the citizen will have to have a digital wallet. That digital wallet will be able to receive the so-called verifiable credentials. So that can be a university diploma that will be issued and then stored on the digital wallet. The blockchain will be supporting the identification of the issuer, of the citizen, and possibly eventually, that's an option, of the diploma itself. Blockchain can also support whitelisting and blacklisting of diplomas. And the main change here is that we are not needing anymore to go to the authentic data source, so to the population register or the business register, because the user now can present the diploma to the verifier real time without needing to go through the request and then response process and then receiving the document to present it. So we believe that once this technology is mainstream, it will allow a much faster, let's say, workflow in many transactions. So this is why we believe that the investment in blockchain makes sense. This pattern can accelerate a number of things and provide the same exact trust. Now, one thing that we are very worried about, of course, is data privacy. And this is not good. My computer wants to reboot. So data privacy is fundamental. So the main message of this slide is that no personal information is ever kept on blockchain. The documents either proving the identity or proving the diploma are kept on the so-called digital wallet. The citizen has them, not the blockchain. The blockchain only keeps at best hashes of these documents, or let's say hashes of pieces of information that can be verified easily by different entities without ever touching upon the data privacy of the citizen. And this is quite important. So blockchain will not in any way endanger data privacy. And we are working together with the member states, so Commission and the member states, in a public sector driven blockchain called European Blockchain Services Infrastructure. The group of member states is known as the European Blockchain Partnership. And we believe that in the future, the model that you have seen will coexist with the other model, the model that will be the data exchange pattern where request and response of documents will continue to exist. So it's not one or the other, can be both. And what we will be seeing more and more is the coexistence of all these technologies for the benefit of citizens. We are currently working on, as I explained, the diploma use case, so making diploma a verifiable credential. We're also working on the identity use case, so to make identity also a verifiable credential, and the notarization of digital information, just creating a sort of fingerprint of digital documents and make it easy for them to be verified. So these are the three initial services, the three initial use cases, and we are cooperating on another one with DG TechSud that we like to call trusted data sharing. So the example that you see on your screen is the diploma use case, where we are using the digital wallet to store a diploma issued by a university. We use the Aeropass format as a verifiable credential, and the user can then present that diploma to either a company or university to prove, of course, a certain academic degree that it holds, he or she. And everything is supported by blockchain, making it, of course, possible for all the process to be trusted. So without any delay, the EBSI is an ecosystem. What is important here as a message, of course, is that we are not building this on our own. We are building this together with the member states in an ecosystem fashion. It means, for example, that we are not even, as Commission, creating our own digital wallet. We are collaborating with member states, but also with private sector initiatives to have multiple wallets available that the citizens can download and can use using their mobile phone. Those wallets will all be compliant to EBSI, so it means that the wallets will have a certain level of interoperability. And of course, what we want is that it will be easy to use cross-border. So that's really our goal here. As we don't have, let's say, hours to discuss here today, I just decided to leave you then with a link to our website where you can find all information about EBSI, and then you can contact us and continue to know more, and we hope to keep in touch.
Thank you, Joe. That was fantastic to hear all of that. Thank you very much for doing it so giving us so much information in such a small amount of time. Well, you've got two questions have come up for you, so I'm going to read them to you. Maybe take one at a time if you like. One is from Eleni Petra-Cow from Unisystems, a FIWARE member. Doesn't the use of digital wallets make the process much more vulnerable to third parties? Because you have the mobile manufacturer, the app developer, the network provider, etc.
Yes, of course. You can always say that we invented the plane crash, and I understand that way of thinking. And this is why we don't believe that there will be the wallet. We believe that the wallets will need to be a market on their own. It needs of course, to ensure the security of the documents. We will be supporting, and this is why what we want to do in EBSI is to support the verification of that of those security standards and the creation of a level playing field to ensure that whatever wallet the citizen chooses to use complies with a number of let's say requirements, and that in the long term, of course, will not mean that it will not be a bumpy road. I understand that. However, this happens every time we introduce a new technology, and we don't expect it to be any different.
Okay, thank you, João. There's another question that's come in, and it says, great insights, João, but the big question is how fast? Is blockchain ready to be the answer to make sure that data sets can be shared and pooled in a safe and agile manner?
No, that is a very good question, and I was listening. Of course, blockchain, and you use the word disrupt. I don't like a lot that word, but in a certain way disrupts the ecosystem. Why? Simply because if you look at the three elements, verifiable credentials is a new data format, so the data sources might not be able to support it. The wallets, of course, is a new way of receiving the data from those issuers. The verification has to be also supported by some tool that eventually does not exist. So when you introduce this way of ensuring trust, that you move away from the pattern where you get the document from the data source in real time, you are, of course, confronted with the fact that you are impacting the issuers of the documents, you are impacting the holder of the document, and you are impacting the verifier of the document, and that the whole ecosystem has to evolve. And this is why my main message is that it's not one or the other. Both will coexist. There will be a transition period. Probably it will not be a transition period from one to the other, but there will be definitely a emerging pattern, which is this one, and a more, let's say, established one, which is the sharing of documents through different secure channels. And at some point, citizens will start to create expectations. So if you have a digital wallet that actually works and you trust, you start pushing the entities to offer that option to you. And I always think that in the end, what will happen, I hope, is that it will be optional. So you might want to ask for the document, or you might want to have it on your wallet, or you might have any other way of looking at this, and all of them will coexist, and the citizens can choose and have, let's say, their options, making their life easier. And this is what we want to achieve in the end. So we are not competing technology, we are not putting technologies to compete with one another. We are trying to make the life of citizens easier. And if this is a way that they like, I mean, I'm more than happy to be working for that to happen.
Thank you, João. There's 1 minute left, so I'm going to combine the last two questions for you together. In fact, one is more of a statement, I think. It's from Greta Geltote. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly. Thank you for the very interesting presentation. In Lithuania, we are developing many public service digitalization projects, and we would like to move on with these using, and then the text stops. So I'm not sure, using EBSI. As EBSI is not in the production phase yet, what would you suggest doing?
Yeah, we are moving
to postpone the implementation. That was.
Yeah, you should contact us. We are moving to the production phase as we are talking, actually. So we are very close to go to production. We are definitely very careful. So this is why all the checks have to be made. But our ambition is to move to production actually in the months that follow. So if you are interested to use EBSI, just reach out to us, and we will be more than happy to support you.
That's fantastic, João. Thanks very much. This is perfect timing. It's 4 o'clock, and now we're ready for some closing comments by Ulrich Ali, who's the CEO of the FIWARE Foundation. Is Ulrich there?
No, Ulrich is not with us, but Stefano will do the remarks. Yeah, he could not join.
Okay, thank you. So yes, let me put my head here of FIWARE Foundation Board of Officer member. And first of all, I would like to thank all the speakers, but even more, I would say, all the attendees, because the questions were really challenging for all of us, this time including myself also as a speaker. And this also proves that there is a good path to follow. Today, we have learned many things. We can certainly start the fact that we have some interesting benefits, of course, in the adoption of those technologies. For instance, also what was highlighted before by Joao, about the efficiency in provision of trustworthy documents, for instance, with reduction of errors, I would say, and so more, yes, efficient in this size. On the other hand, we also discussed this very much before, also with Jose and Miguel Angel. We are going to face some organizational changes. This was also highlighted by Judith, which I thank again for giving her wiseness in moderating all of us. And this is important because the organizational change is something that we cannot underestimate, particularly when we are doing so important innovation and we like or not the word as well, disruptive in certain way, and this is what could happen, and we maybe all of us would like to see happening in adoption of trustworthy technologies, in particular as they are the blockchain technologies. So I think this is something that push the community in thinking in a more holistic way, in the sense that we are not facing just technology challenges, but we are facing social and organizational challenges that must go together. And I like also the way Vance was saying when she designed this process of having various circles of innovation in embodying and making available the technologies, and at each circle involving and engaging all the stakeholders. I think this is very important. So that is something that I will take really very much as a push for the work we are doing, not only the FIWARE Foundation, but also through the Token Project and others where we are involved exactly in this. So taking on board the fact that changes and adoption of technology can only be done if we see the 360 degrees perspective of the things. If I can say something also a bit about what we are doing in terms of FIWARE Foundation here, also to assure you, is that we are implementing several components and several technologies that allow us to put together and to standardize the storage aspects of the data when these are together with the blockchain technologies. And I think this is also an important element because standardization also in this sector is important. So yes, honestly, there is so much to say, but also many elements that we can buy also from other aspects that we have discussed today. And something that on about business model, if I can put my opinion also here, is about the fact that blockchain can make can increase the value of the data that are exchanged. Exactly because one thing is to buy a number, if we may say a data corresponding to a number. One thing is buying something that has a value because we trust that number. This is a completely different story. So we are not buying just, let's say, a temperature, but we are buying the organization, the process, and everything that is around or collecting that temperature, just to exemplify the things. And this is an important element when we talk about business modeling, and we talk about the standards that need to be developed at this stage. So also, in this case, I would say that adoption of blockchains will have an effect, important effect, not only in the use of public administration, as was the talk of today, but also in the trade of data as such. So we will move from data that are just numbers for data that have a value because we trust those data. With this last reflection that I give to you all, because there is a lot to also to understand, to discuss here, I would like to, yes, conclude this event, which I found wonderful, honestly, and I would like, yes, to thank again our speakers, moderator, and attendees, because of this was a very 2 hours of learning a lot today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stefano. Okay, now, well, first of all, thank you all for joining, and Monse, Judith, Miguel, Joao, Dominic, thank you, and Stefano. Thank you all, because I think that this has been quite interesting and valuable also for the token project. I wanted to just to say that, well, to talk about 2 events. We are missing our FIWARE summits, because this could be an opportunity to meet together with all of you, but we are networking online, so I just wanted to announce that our next FIWARE Fest will be, well, you can see in the screen, in June, and from the 8th to 10th of June, and we are opening the call for contributions, so you are all welcome to share your experience, use cases on the topics that you know that with FIWARE is working with in smart cities, smart agri-food, smart industry, and smart energy. So we are willing to meet all together, and let's see if we can do physically next time. And then our next domain day will be focused on cybersecurity. I just wanted also to announce that we will have 2 hours event on May 13. So please join and register, and well, we will be sharing very soon the speakers, and could be also interesting. So thank you all for joining. I wanted to finish with this slide, because we are discussing on DLTs for government in the token community. So please join the spaces, the open spaces that we have, because we are sharing news with our use cases, and well, this is the place where we can discuss on all these things. Thank you all, and well, goodbye, and hope to see you all again. Thank you, Monse, Miguel, Judith, Stefano.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. Have a nice afternoon. Bye.